I'm just not a fan of humans in the Sonic series. Most of them are boring or unlikable. Professor Pickle is the only exception.
And making them animals would help somehow. That's more down to how they're written than anything. It's not like making them Anthros-enforcers did much. They were arguably even more generic there. At least Unleashed humans had character.
It wouldn't necessarily help, but it would certainly make me happy.
I don't like Sonic being in an Anthro world. It just makes Sonic seem very infantile for furries.
You got a problem with furries?
But without humans, where would Eggman have come from? Guy gotta originate from somewhere.
Who says Eggman would be a human?
Hey Stingray, I'm gonna need your help down here. Looks like we got a 316 in progress. Gonna need you to send in the big gun.
You got a problem with furries?
I had a feeling your reasoning was gonna be tied to this. Just a hunch.
Who says Eggman would be a human?
I mean, it's kinda right there in his name, Eggman. I feel like changing his species would necessitate a dramatic change to his design as to make him unrecognizable. Part of his iconic look, which has persisted through all iterations of the character, is that he's a big bald guy with a mustache. Hard to pull that off with a character covered in fur.
So he'd be a really tall dwarf?
Virtually no one has a problem with Eggman being a human, so changing that fact would just leave a lot of people asking, why?
I mean, it's kinda right there in his name, Eggman.
All that signifies is that he's male.
I feel like changing his species would necessitate a dramatic change to his design as to make him unrecognizable. Part of his iconic look, which has persisted through all iterations of the character, is that he's a big bald guy with a mustache. Hard to pull that off with a character covered in fur.
I actually have a design that I think looks good. It's meant to be for a hypothetical new Eggman, but I think it could work for Robotnik himself.
There isn't even a hint of egg in that man.
He's not even a walrus.
If you don't have the stash, it belongs in the trash. Not saying your art or design is bad in and of itself. It could totally work as an original character, but it's just extremely unfitting for Eggman. Even way the Hellonk model takes on the character like Set A and Robotnik, and even the live-action film Robotnik never cut out his mustache. I really do think that it's as integral to Eggman's design as Sonic's spines, Tails' tails, or Knuckles' dreadlocks. Without it, he's just not him. And, connecting this to the topic at hand here, I'm not sure how that'd go if he was already a hair-covered animal. Yeah, there have been cases of normal hair on top of fur like the mustachio of Uncle Chuck, but I also think that, even if you found a way to keep the mustache with an animal design, Eggman being bald is also extremely iconic of his appearance. It's what gives him an head. You know, it'd be really hard to tap these design elements, which I honestly consider essential for Eggman, into an animal character.
I don't think his mustache or baldness are that integral to his design. The red jacket is what I notice first and foremost.
You literally just don't like Eggman. So why beat around the bush and make a half-assed XP of him when you can just omit a character like him entirely in your ideal Sonic fantasy?
This is reminding me of something I just can't nail. Anyway.
I don't think his mustache or baldness are that integral to his design. The red jacket is what I notice first and foremost.
Say, how about maybe making a villain that isn't primarily red again? Never mind derivative of Eggman anyway. But yeah, Eggman's mustache is pretty iconic of the character.
I don't think his mustache or baldness are that integral to his design.
The Eggman logo is literally his face.
I don't think his mustache or baldness are that integral to his design. The red jacket is what I notice first and foremost.
Oh my god. Who's this man? Is that Eggman? I can't tell because he's not wearing his iconic red jacket. I mean, come on now, oh my god. Who's this man?
Theodore Roosevelt.
After some thought, I've decided that maybe Eggman does need a mustache of some kind. Here's an edit of my previous drawing that makes him an otter instead. As you can see, his whiskers look a lot like a mustache.
There is still nothing Eggman about that. It's just a generic looking animal in Eggman-like attire. Lacks all the heart and weight Eggman's got. Once again, this leaves me asking, you just don't like Eggman. So what is the point in making some half-assed Eggman-like critter when you can just omit a character like that from existing in your Sonic fantasy headcanon, just to please fans besides yourself?
You people are so unpleasable. This is why nobody likes the Sonic fan base.
Because nobody else makes Eggman OCs when Eggman already exists?
Nobody likes the Sonic fan base because they don't like your fan character?
You're the one who wasn't pleased with Eggman being human in the first place.
You're suggesting they change one of the most fundamental parts of the series, one of its longest running and most consistently appearing characters, from his well-recognized design into a pretty generic furry just because you don't want him to be a human. Imagine if someone said they should redesign Sonic into a human, and their example is just Chris Thorndike with blue hair. Would you support that just because someone else wanted it?
Eggman is a net-shift man!
Man, this is why nobody likes us. When this site closes down, the Sonic fan base will be a utopia then.
If I may ask, why is Eggman being a human a negative for you? I want to understand where you're coming from a little better, because I'm just having trouble seeing why his humanity detracts from him in your eyes.
I could probably answer for him. The problem is literally because he isn't a furry.
I mean, if you want to go for the low hang, sure. I just interpreted it as a logical extreme of there shouldn't be humans in Sonic idea.
The illogical extreme. It's just that one part of every fandom that dislikes things about the series that have been there from the beginning and acts like it was always out of place.
At this point, I think it's best we move on from this particular post, since after a couple of days, it appears is not interested in responding. Also, no need to further dogpile since I don't think there's anything anyone can say that hasn't already been said.
Never use a metaphor, simile, or other figure of speech which you are used to seeing in print. Never use a long word where a short one will do. If it is possible to cut a word out, always cut it out. Never use the passive where you can use the active. Never use a foreign phrase, a scientific word, or a jargon word if you can think of an everyday English equivalent. Break any of these rules sooner than say anything outright barbarous.
Amy Rose is Sonic's sister. She loves and adores him and looks up to him, and he thinks her affection is annoying and off-putting. She wants to join him on adventures and he doesn't want her to, because she could get hurt or kidnapped.
What?
To answer your what? Well, to me, Sonic and Amy are not an OTP couple. The unrequited romance dynamic doesn't do much beyond the initial gag to serve the characters. The best aspect of the dynamic they have, she admires him, he's dismissive but protective. They're lifelong friends, is more sibling-like than it is reminiscent of a potential romantic relationship. Amy Rose has a kid-sister vibe, that's been part of her character since day one and throughout. So I don't think you lose anything if you remove Amy's in love with Sonic, and replace it with Amy loves her big brother Sonic. Maybe others disagree. I like Amy Rose as a character a lot, and I think simply making the Hedgehogs as siblings makes everything simpler. It's a subtle change, but it empowers Amy to be her best character and not fall into clingy stalker girlfriend tropes. That's an angle I've never found especially appealing. If there were to be a romantic angle, I would position Blaze the Cat as a potential partner for Sonic. But just in a flirty way, like Batman/Catwoman. In other words, I would give Sonic an equal, and Amy is not really his equal. So just make the status clear. She's the kid sister who tags along.
Sonic and Amy are not siblings. Amy thinks of Sonic romantically. This is blatantly shown multiple times. They've been on dates together. She wants to marry the guy.
Right. I'm not disputing the canon. Lol. There's not really a debate on that aspect of it. You're just misunderstanding me, or I'm not articulating it well enough. I'm talking about my headcanon, or more of a pitch on how I would retcon/realign/streamline the relationships to allow for the best versions of the characters. In the main games, there's not much you even need to ignore or recontextualize to make it work. Amy is clearly obsessed with Sonic and loves him, but there aren't a ton of examples of literalizing it in any form. I can't recall off the top of my head any examples of Sonic or Amy dating, holding hands, or even suggesting labels like boyfriend/girlfriend/date/wedding. The joke is Sonic is too cool for a fangirl's infatuations, so it's a one-sided affair until Metal Sonic kidnaps her and Sonic sets out to rescue her. After Sonic CD and then some small scattered examples since Adventure, Amy's infatuation with Sonic has been downplayed to the point of being vestigial and unnecessary. Amy's arc is she's not taken seriously, then ends up leading a resistance force, maybe even just call them freedom fighters, since modern Amy is increasingly like Sally Acorn minus the princess angle, and less of a romantic story with Sonic, which is fine. Your mileage may vary, especially if you ship Amy and Sonic, but to me there's not a lot to the idea of them as a couple. It seems pointless. Their dynamic is more fun and playful if they can make fun of each other, like siblings. I don't think romantically longing for Sonic is better than love Sonic like a brother. The latter option gives her more of an independence and simultaneously a closer connection, and gives a fresh shake to Sonic/Amy/Tails/Knuckles dynamic. There could be a debate on this, though. What are Amy's core traits? What is essential to her character?
I'm talking about my headcanon, or more of a pitch on how I would retcon/realign/streamline the relationships to allow for the best versions of the characters.
That's not what a headcanon is.
Were there threads that were closer to these ideas? And nor could there be a new one?
Well, aren't we having a great conversation? Thanks for contributing. Edit. Also. Hold up a second. What do you think headcanon is? Break down the etymology. Whose head? My head. What is canon? Canon is a standard, a set of rules. This is my version of the status quo rules. For short, you might call it headcanon. Curious to your thought process on your tone in our exchange. What's up here? Instead of adding conversational value, your aim was to prove me wrong? Prove how this imaginary version of an imaginary thing is actually wrong? Like, you see how that's rude, right? Don't get mixed up. It's fine. I'm cool. But maybe in the future you could be a bit more mindful about what you're getting out of acting like a cop on a Sonic message board.
I can't recall off the top of my head any examples of Sonic or Amy dating, holding hands, or even suggesting labels.
Heroes, Unleashed, Black Knight, Chronicles.
Ah, well there you have it. I've only played a bit of each of those games and didn't finish any of them. Do you think those games made you more invested in Amy's crush on Sonic? Like, does it more emotionally ground or set that in stone for you? Genuinely wondering. I don't know. I know people ship everybody and I'm sure a lot of people do with Sonic and Amy, but, to me, having not seen the examples cited, Amy has an unrequited crush on Sonic doesn't strike me as a better explanation than Amy is Sonic's sister to the question of, why is this character here? How are they connected to the story? It's not better. It's just what it is, what it's been. I don't think it's likely to become a retcon for any actual Sonic media, but it wouldn't be hard to make it work. They find out about their mysterious childhood, or something comes from the past, whatever. There's a revelation and they reckon with it. It's the Luke and Leia retcon, in that imaginary headcanon story. I think I'd just make the 4 hedgehogs related. I like the theory that the ultimate life form that Dr. Gerald discovered, also known as creating Shadow, it wasn't foretelling the coming of Sonic a generation later. He was created using a sliver of Sonic's DNA, and Dr. Gerald used the mysterious blue quill to clone engineer Shadow as the ultimate life form. How does Dr. Gerald get a Sonic sliver? Silver the Hedgehog's, the time-traveling descendant/long-distance nephew from the future. It was a butterfly effect situation. Silver, Sonic, and Blaze were on an adventure, warping across dimensions and times through warp ring/soul emerald/chaos control. As they're passing through, a close shave with an enemy leaves behind a Sonic quill in Gerald's lab, who then reverse engineer clones Shadow. The hedgehogs are all related, just adds some definition to what's already there, gives it some cohesion. Shadow is the evil twin. Silver feels like a cousin, so call him cousin, even though he's actually a distant descendant from X amount of years in the future. He's actually a great-great-great-great-great-grandchild, but cousin would be how they think of each other. Maybe it already is? I don't know Silver very well.
I mean, yeah. Up until Lost World's weird retcon, Amy and Sonic could have potentially gone somewhere. Anyway, while both aren't bad explanations for Amy's existence, Amy's love for Sonic is understandable and is based off stuff we already know. We know how they met via CD. Amy being Sonic's long-lost sibling could work under a reboot of the franchise or like in one of the cartoons, but it doesn't mesh at all with the games.
I'm sorry if I came off in that way. I assure that was not my intention. What I'm trying to say is, headcanon is a belief you have for a story that's based on what there is available to us within the source material. Let's look at your original post for some examples. Knuckles has a psychic link to the Master Emerald and is able to see from the MES perspective in his mind's eye. This is a perfectly reasonable headcanon to have. It's been demonstrated within established canon that Knuckles is able to sense a Master Emerald shards when he goes looking for them, ergo it would make perfect sense for him to have some sort of psychic connection to the full gem itself. This headcanon essentially fills in a blank by explaining what you believe said connection actually is. On the other hand, believing that Sonic and Amy are siblings or that they have some kind of sibling-type relationship. That goes against just about every piece of established canon. Amy clearly thinks of Sonic romantically. She's repeatedly voiced her desire to marry him someday. They've been on dates before. Hell, in Sonic Chronicles, Sonic will flat out admit that he secretly feels the same way about her if the right conversation path is taken. The way you worded your original headcanon made it sound as if this is what you believe to be the case within established canon, without any implication that this is my own complete rare imagining of the Sonic universe, or that it's an AU headcanon. If we're looking at other established Sonic continuities, the only place a Sonic and Amy are brother/sister theory could work would be in the Fleetway Sonic the comic continuity. It's the only real continuity out there in which the two of them are not explicitly romantically linked. It could even work in continuities where Amy is never introduced. Random example. Amy exists in the OVA universe, where she is Sonic's little sister. But again, you didn't specify.
Fair enough. Although Amy as Sonic's sister doesn't go against every piece of canon, but you do need to be selective. For example, if you just take the classic Sonic verse on their own, nothing in the actual games contradicts it. In Sonic CD, we see that Amy hearts Sonic, but that works with my headcanon. Amy's appearances in the animated Maniaverse shorts could also be seen as sisterly. I don't remember every piece of dialogue in Sonic Adventure or SA2, but what comes to mind isn't contradictory either. She adores him, he's a bit annoyed by her, and she's frustrated by him. For me, it makes their relationship feel fuller, more nuanced, more loving. It establishes a bedrock connection that doesn't depend on character flaws to keep them together. It also liked the way it explains why Amy looks exactly like Sonic, just pink and in a dress. Which is why I think it would then make sense to assume Shadow and Silver also share some of Sonic's DNA, clone/distant relative, and is similar to the echidnas like Tickle in SA1 who look just like Knuckles, which makes sense, as Knuckles is descended from that tribe. It obviously works without them being literally family. Hedgehogs just happen to all look like this, in this world, is the established canon. I just prefer it the way I have it in my head.
I don't remember every piece of dialogue in Sonic Adventure or SA2.
Did you see it? Where is it now?
If I tell ya, will you marry me?
No way!
I thought I had you this time.
Comparison is irrelevant. It was the only version of this scene I could find.
I don't remember every piece of dialogue in Sonic Adventure or SA2, but what comes to mind isn't contradictory either.
Well, there's the part in SA2 where she wants to marry him. And the part in SA where they get into Twinkle Park because cute couples get in free.
Do you have a sister?
I don't. Do you?
Well, there's the part in SA2 where she wants to marry him, and the part in SA where they get into Twinkle Park because cute couples get in free.
2 lines. Easy cuts or redubs to my mind. Neither of them are good jokes. The jail scene makes more sense through the sister lens than it does romantic interest minus that line. Her real motivation is she's helping Sonic, she's half joking about marrying him. Her overall character is definitely more like kid sister than girlfriend, or even clingy wannabe girlfriend. Amy doesn't seem like Peach to Mario to me. She's more like Luigi, but a girl and usually unplayable. I guess what I don't get is, who wants to see Sonic and Amy kissing? They're brother and sister.
I don't think you understand how sisters work. Also this.
Gotcha, my darling Sonic.
Amy, what are you doing here?
Sonic, this time there's no way out of marrying me.
Amy doesn't seem like Peach to Mario to me.
Yeah, she's way more romantically aggressive than Peach has ever been.
May I ask you something? How much hedgehog have you consumed in your life and which parts?
I don't.
Yeah, that explains this whole line of thinking then.
Do you?
Yes, considering the clear romantic subtext of Sonic and Amy's relationship, and how distinctly unsibling-like their whole dynamic comes across, as this whole thing comes across as a little bizarre to me.
Almost all of Amy's entire character is that she wants to marry Sonic and be with him, especially after she got flanderized. Actually, her bio and CD was that she used tarot cards to find her romantic partner. There is no way to look at this character and say, no, she's not, without ignoring over half of the stuff she says. At that point, you're just making a fanfic an entirely different fancanon, which sure, do whatever you want. But don't expect everyone else to be on board with entirely changing a character's dynamic to fit your fic load.
What I'm trying to say is, headcanon is a belief you have for a story that's based on what there is available to us within the source material.
A more overt explanation of headcanon, fanon, also known by the term headcanon, is the set of theories based on that source material which, no matter how much they seem to be the obvious or only interpretation of canonical fact, are not actually part of the canon. Unfortunately, the Sonic and Amy having a sibling dynamic doesn't source back to anything. It's also redundant because that's what Tails is for. The closest thing to her being younger sibling like is A2, but that's because she's a tag-along and usually a liability to the heroes as younger characters usually are in fiction.
Old headcanon. Sonic and Amy have always had a platonic, familial relationship. Absurd. New headcanon. Sonic and Amy are enjoying steamy hookups in between each zone, but despite all of this hedgehog sex, Sonic just won't commit and Amy can't take the hint. Now that's what I call canon.
Yeah, that explains this whole line of thinking then. Yes, considering the clear romantic subtext of Sonic and Amy's relationship, and how distinctly unsibling-like their whole dynamic comes across, as this whole thing comes across as a little bizarre to me.
Do you have a romantic partner?
Almost all of Amy's entire character is that she wants to marry Sonic and be with him, especially after she got flanderized. Actually, her bio and CD was that she used tarot cards to find her romantic partner. There is no way to look at this character and say, no, she's not, without ignoring over half of the stuff she says. At that point, you're just making a fanfic an entirely different faction. But sure, do whatever you want, but don't expect everyone else to be on board with entirely changing a character's dynamic to fit your fic load.
LOL. First question. Is Amy's characterization as a delusional stalker part of her appeal, or does it make her character less essential to the cast? Second question. Do you think canons are real, or are you aware that fiction is constructed by writers making things up? LOL.
You're talking about cartoon hedgehogs having sex on a fan message board, so we all know how you'd answer the question. Are we done here?